here. Thank you to everyone for joining us this evening for tonight's webinar, Farm Incubator Programs, 3 Different Views. This is the continuation of a series of summer webinars that we've been doing, highlighting different topics. We've been running an integrated pest management series all summer long since May. The last of those is going to be in 2 weeks on the 18th with Abby Seaman, talking about taking IPM out into the field. So if you're dealing with field pest or field weed issues and want to sort of follow along or just hear what she has to say about that, please consider joining us for that session. That'll be another evening session. We wanted to welcome everyone. The Farm Incubator model is something that we feel really strongly complements a lot of the work PASA has been doing lately. We maintain our 2 apprenticeship programs, the Diversified Vegetable Apprenticeship, the DVA, and the Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship, the DGA. Those programs are 18-month and 2-year respectively programs for training farmers in vegetable production and dairying. And we see farm incubators as both an opportunity to gain your initial experience, but more particularly to move on to actually incubate and grow your farm business after you've completed a training program. Farm incubator programs are meant to help beginning farmers cross and bridge their professional training with actually accessing land and becoming that owner-operator that they aspire to be. So we're going to hear about 3 different models for incubators and training farms around Pennsylvania in particular. A few technical notes here. We're going to be taking questions for the Q&A session at the end via the chat box. So at the bottom of your screen, hopefully, or somewhere around your screen, there should be an icon that says chat. If you do have a question in particular, you can address that to everyone, and I will be aggregating those throughout. So if anything comes up, feel free to drop it in there. We will hold those questions, though, until the Q&A portion. If you have someone in particular that you want to address the question to, feel free to include that either in brackets or as a part of the question so that we can be as specific and as helpful as possible in answering your questions. We have about 70 people or so registered for tonight, and we've got about 30 already on with us here. So please do be sure to remain muted throughout. We don't want to, it's hard with a lot of crosstalk and a lot of ambient noise to focus on the presentation. So please do remain muted and use that chat box. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties, but you are somehow also in the Zoom meeting right now, you can also use that chat box to let us know, and we'll try to help you as best we can. This session is being recorded. Once we process it, we will post it to the resources page on PASA's website. So if there is something that you want to go back and review, or you want to share it with somebody in your network or otherwise who you think might benefit from it, we definitely encourage you to do so. One of the best ways that we share knowledge throughout the farming communities is peer-to-peer and by word of mouth. Finally, before we wrap up tonight, please don't leave before completing the event evaluation. That'll be shared. A link to that will be shared in the chat box. Those event evaluations help us with grant reporting. It also helps us with planning future programming. So if you have comments, either you found it really useful or you would like in some way to suggest another topic or whatever, please do use that evaluation for that purpose. It is really helpful for us and meaningful. We have with us this evening 3, like I said, farms that have either incubators or training programs or both. The Hilltop Urban Farm in Pittsburgh, the Seed Farm in Emmaus in Eastern PA, and the Horn Farm Center in York in South Central PA. You should have a poll going up in front of you. Please do complete that. We'd like to get a sense for who our audience is here tonight. So we're asking what your current level of farming experience is. Are you currently considering applying to a farm incubator program? And which of the following would best describe your current situation. This will help our speakers a little bit too as they frame their comments. We're going to leave that go for just about 30 seconds here for folks to respond. And to our speakers, if you want to keep an eye on that and just see if that in any way informs how you want to address things. Okay, it looks like activity has dropped off. I'll give about 5 more seconds here or so for folks to respond. It looks like we've got about 60% in the 0 to 4 and another 15% in the 5 to 9 years, with the remainder being 10 to 19 seasons of production experience. 40% considering applying to an incubator. That's great. Welcome. And which best describes you? Aspiring farmers, new farmers, technical service providers, farm educators, and some others. Okay, very good. Thank you all for responding. That's really helpful for us as we sort of frame tonight's session. All right, we'll share out the results there, I guess. Just to take a look for anybody who's curious. Okay. I'm going to hand it over now to our first speaker, Ned Brockmeyer, who represents the Hilltop Urban Farm in Pittsburgh. Ned, go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Dan. And thank you to PASA and to my fellow co-presenters from Seed Farm and the Horn Farm Center. Excited to learn more about your operations tonight, but also excited to be here and to share a bit about what we've been doing at Hilltop Urban Farm. So Gina, if you don't mind going to the next slide, please. So I just want to give a little bit of site history about the farm. It's a very unique spot within the city. It's about 2.5 miles south of the city center and south of the rivers, if you're familiar with downtown Pittsburgh. It is the site of a former federal housing development, and you can see in the photo on the left, there were about 80 buildings on site at its peak. It was built in the 50s in response to the 1945 Housing Act. So as folks were returning from World War II, they needed low-income, cheap places to live. And so, you know, cheap being the key term, they built cheap housing. And so, you know, I figure this stuff was never built to last. It was full of asbestos. And so in the 90s, when the federal government shifted away from large-scale federal housing projects to Section 8 vouchers, the folks who lived there actually fell victim to that shift in policy and were asked to leave. So there's been a history of displacement with the site. I do like to point out that originally the land was Osage Nation land. As farmers, we do like to make sure we're looking at this in the context of who the stewards of the land were originally and respecting that and honoring that history. In the slide, well, in the same slide, but on the right side of the photo is a plan that was developed for the farm. And Hilltop Urban Farm, we became a farm for the, you know, got our 501c3 status last summer for the first time, actually. We were a project of the Hilltop Alliance, which is a CDC that represents the 13 different neighborhoods that are located in our section of Pittsburgh that have generally been neglected by the city and been resource poor. And so we're trying to use this farm as a way to generate income in the community and also, you know, just fresh produce for folks who need it. And especially in a time of COVID, it's been hammered home this year more than ever how needed this sort of work is within this community and really every community. And so I will say that that photo on the right is not where we are yet. And that's an aspirational site plan that we have there that was done back, honestly, I believe in 2015, well before my time. But I put it there so you can get a sense of where things are located on the farm. On the north edge, at the very top, there's a youth farm and a production orchard or a community orchard. And we will eventually, once we own the land, and I will talk about the land stewardship process that we're going through here in a bit, we will add a community garden and an immigrant garden as well on that north side. So that's more of our public facing stuff. And then the Farmer Incubator program, what you guys are here to learn more about is really everything south of that street, which is Cresswell Street that runs through. So everything around that horseshoe, and within that horseshoe is the Incubator Farm. And it's about 15 acres total, but really only about 10 acres of farmable land. So if you don't mind going to the next slide, thank you. This just gives you an idea of where it sits in relation to Pittsburgh. So the photo on the left If you can see out in the distance, downtown Pittsburgh, about 2 miles away, that is looking northwest towards the city. And then on the right side there is a view looking southwest. And if you look on the right side, to the right of the street, you can see our youth farm and the youth farm orchard right there. We have a shipping container in there as well with solar panels to serve as, a bit of a hub for the youth. And then you can see our hoop house in the middle field there as well. This just gives you a better sense of the land. It is a bit of an oasis. We're surrounded by about 250 acres of forest, and we are adjacent to Hayes Woods, which is over 600 acres of forested land that will become Pittsburgh's largest park eventually. And we hope that the forest surrounding our farm will eventually become a part of that as well. So we can go to the next program so we get to the meat of it. So yeah, we opened to the public for the first time last April, actually. And we had 2 programs. We had our farmer incubation program, and I was actually brought on to run our youth farm program where I did after school and camps, but I ended up doing a lot of work on the farmer incubation program because we're, a very small staff, so we have to do a little bit of everything. We are in our second year of operation this year. In 2019, we had 5 businesses actually started the year, and this gives you an idea of how tough the conditions are on our site. And you can see in the photo with our BCS there, you might be able to see some of the bricks and stuff we hit. There's another photo coming up that'll show it a little bit better. But we had 5 farmers to start this year, a flower farmer, 2 vegetable farmers, and then we call them farmers, but really they're farm businesses. One's a compost business and another is a bee business. And they're still out there. The flower farmer is as well. But the vegetable farmers had such a tough time getting started last year. And honestly, we didn't have a ton of equipment. And so they struggled to get going. And I'll give Colette Walsh a lot of credit from Soul Patch Garden. She's the one farmer who did push through and make it through and have a successful year. But we took this off season to take the chance to really revamp the farmer incubator program. We increased access to tools and equipment. We now have 3 BCS tillers. We also purchased a Kubota subcompact tractor, which has helped us to clear some of the fields and a lot of the debris. If you look, my bottom note there, we pulled 80,000 pounds of bricks and different construction materials from just 3/4 acres of this site. And, this was after the Federal Housing Authority said they had totally cleared the site. As you can imagine, that was not exactly the case. It is only $600 for the year for 1/4 acre. We won't give anybody any larger plots than that as of right now. We're a bit more limited on space than we thought we were initially when I started last year. So we're being a little more probably picky about who we let onto the farm in 2021. But yeah, the only other expense that farmers have is their monthly water bills. And again, this is subject to change in 2021 because we didn't charge for our hoop house this year. We even, supplied gas for our tillers for our farmers. So we'll see. It just depends on funding and things like that. But we can go ahead on to the next slide, please. We do have some very unique challenges in the photo, and I should have made that one the big one on the left. You can see just some of the bricks and rocks that I literally tilled up a 20 by 40 foot spot and pulled out probably 1,000 pounds of rock in like 20 minutes last week. And that was just a photo of that section. So it's really tough soils, and working the soil, especially for a new farmer, is really hard. We do rely on volunteers typically, but this time last year we had 600 volunteers through the farm at this point. We've had 60 through the farm this year because we just reopened, and as you can imagine, things are cautious, and when we do have big groups, we are wearing masks and distancing. And one of the fortunate things about farm work is you're outside and you can stay away. So if anybody watching this wants to come volunteer and you're in Pittsburgh, come find me. But the other unique challenges are because it's federally owned land still, and we don't have land access yet, permanent. We sign a yearly lease with the Federal Housing Authority, and it means that we can't have permanent structures on site. And so we use these shipping containers that you see on the right to store our tractors, to store our tillers, to store everything really that we would need. We have to bring porta-johns onto the site because we can't build our own toilets yet, and we also had to install solar panels, and we're doing so right now to continue the build out of some of our infrastructure because we need a cooler and we need a wash and pack, and we had hoped to get it done by now, but COVID really slowed that down because the company we were purchasing the insulated cooler from wasn't open until about a month ago again. And so we've had some unique challenges this year. We're still in the process of attaching the solar panels because even though there's electric, you can see the power pole in the right photo, there is electricity running through those poles, we cannot tap into it as per our lease agreement. And same goes for the water that is running under the streets. And so the past few years, we've really invested heavily in the infrastructure like the water, and also we're putting the money down now to build out this solar so that we have a wash and pack and a cooler for next year. Right now we have a mobile cooler, but it's a bit finicky with the solar at times, and we're hoping to solve that with a bigger system that we're putting on top of this cooler we're building now. So yeah, those are some of the unique challenges. I'm sure there's some questions. Yeah, go ahead, Gina, you were right on it. We do have a ton of future plans for our Farmer Incubator program. It's a big responsibility, we feel like, to make sure that everything that we're doing, we're making sure we're doing it for the Hilltop community. Again, as I mentioned before, this is a community that has been neglected historically by the city and by the state. And we hope to really bring some more reinvestment into the people here and into help build some businesses on our farm. So we hope to increase the number of farmers from the Hilltop communities, training opportunities. With a staff of 2 right now, it's really tough for us to offer many workshops or things. So what we do is offer our farmers opportunities to go and find education, and we'll help pay for that. So, until we are able to provide our own education on the farm, we're really trying to get them out to do different things. Now, one of the challenges has been our existing farmers have years of experience, and we're really looking to get farmers who are wanting to learn. And I think we need to just keep working on preparing our soils so that new farmers can come in and have less of a challenge, because the farmers who did leave last year are, seasoned farmers who know what they're doing, and it really just was tough without the tools and equipment. And it was a big learning curve for us. And, we didn't really advertise our program this year until January, when we knew we would have the tools and the tractor. But I do digress. We hope to continue to create opportunities for our farmers to train and teach others. So when we do have students in the photo, you can see our SCA youth who were around for 2 weeks this summer before they were told to step off the farm because of worries around COVID. But, we really hope to get our farmers engaged with those kids and really build a sort of apprenticeship program on the farm, so that, young kids who might not want to go to college or might not even want to go to a technical school, but want to do a farm apprenticeship can start a business on our site and, make sure that their community is eating healthily and well, or getting flowers or whatever it is that they're doing on our farm. But yeah, we're thankful for the support that PASA gives us, and I'm looking forward to all the questions that everybody is hopefully bringing tonight, and to hearing more from these other great farms. So thank you again for the opportunity, and have a good one. See you in a bit.
All right, thank you, Ned. We do have a video recording from the Pittsburgh Urban Farm Tour that highlights Colette Walsh, Soul Patch Gardens, that Ned mentioned. And we'll drop that in the chat box as a link as we get to the end of tonight's session. So do keep an eye out for that if you are interested in either this farm in particular or flower farming more specifically. All right, I think Lindsay has joined us here. Lindsay from the Seed Farm in Emmaus, if you want to unmute yourself and go ahead.
Okay, hi. Could we also unmute Brad Pollock? He's here as well from the Seed Farm.
Did that work? Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, thanks, Brad. Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you so much to PASA, to Aaron and Dan in particular for inviting us to take part in this. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the Seed Farm and our history, and a little bit about the Incubator program. Brad can fill in with more of the technical details, and then we will answer your questions at the end. So first of all, just to tell you a little bit about the Seed Farm, if you're not familiar with us, we've been around since 2010. Up until a year ago, we were an independent 501c3, but we recently merged with a larger organization, which should give us the capability to assist the beginning farmers we work with in accessing more funding from lenders, more marketing and business planning opportunities, and just visibility in the larger community. So when the seed farm started, however, it was started as an extension of Lehigh County's Farmland Preservation Program, which was started in 1989. So farmland preservation is a big priority in the Lehigh Valley. Right now, there are about 25,000 acres preserved in Lehigh County and about 17,000 in Northampton County. So that means we have about 42,000 acres of preserved farmland in the Lehigh Valley. So this is a really great place to farm, and we're hoping that through the Seed Farm's efforts of training and new farm incubation that we'll be able to really continue to build and strengthen the farming community right here in the Lehigh Valley. Gina, would you mind moving the slide, please? Thanks. So, so the Seed Farm was started in 2010, and we are located in Emmaus, which is about 15 minutes from downtown Allentown. It's also fairly easy to access Bethlehem and Easton, which are the other main cities in the Lehigh Valley. We're about an hour from Philadelphia, as long as there's no traffic, about an hour and a half from New York City, again, with no traffic. So we have had incubator farmers who have had great success selling in those cities. So we're fairly close to those. And we try to cultivate the next generation of farmers primarily through, we have two goals, and that is to train beginning farmers and recruit people into farming, which we do through workshops, short courses. We have a CSA Workshare program, and we also do demonstrations in our farm fields. And then the other goal is to foster new farm businesses. So more small business development and entrepreneurship activities. And that's what we do through our incubator. So the incubator works by providing beginning farmers with access primarily to land, infrastructure, and equipment. Those are the main resources that we provide. So beginning farmers, which may include gardeners, apprentices, even an existing farmer who wants to try out a new enterprise but lacks adequate land, they can apply to launch their farm businesses on our site. We are currently on 42 acres, about 20 tillable acres, but we have room to expand. We really focus on smaller, small scale of businesses. About up to 5 acres, maybe 10 acres. So the process starts with an online pre-application. And that is a no commitment way of just kind of raising your hand and letting us know that you're considering starting a farm business. So you tell us what your plans are, what your experience level is, maybe attach a business plan if you're that far in the process. And it just gives us an opportunity to gauge how much interest there is in the incubator for the next season. We will review your plans and your goals, meet with you if it's safe. Otherwise, talk with you on the phone to learn more about what you have in mind and discuss various opportunities for the following season. At that point, we're able to determine if you need more experience, if you need additional training, and we kind of walk you through this part in the process. So I'm going to let Brad jump in at this point to tell you a little bit more. You can stay on that other slide, Gina. Brad will tell you a little bit more about this pre-application process and how we help people through it.
So once a farmer comes to us and gives us a business plan, we usually review it. And some of the skills and things that you would need, you need kind of equipment training. We usually provide equipment training. We can either do it, as part of the incubator process, or we offer like a la carte equipment training. We also try to connect them to local markets, either through people we know, or we also have a pretty good relationship with the extension agents in our area. So we use those things to kind of provide a market for the people that are going to be incubator farmers. One of the other things we tried to avoid is competition among incubator farmers. So they may be growing the same crops, but we try to make sure that they have different outlets. Maybe one's wholesaling vegetables, maybe one's retailing through a farm market, or at least different farm markets in the area. So they're not selling all, out of the seed farm stand or at the same farmers markets. And we'd like some of the new incubator farmer plans to include things like culinary or medicinal herbs and brambles, eggs, chickens, mushrooms, flowers, some different type of stuff. So we try to get a lot of diversified things going on in the incubator program.
All right. So, so at that point, once we've kind of walked you through the process and helped you to finalize your farm plan, and that's not to say you might be past that. You might come to us with a finished farm plan, business plan, like you might be ready to go. And we've had people like that in the past as well. But we find that a lot of people who come to the incubator might be missing a few pieces. So we have kind of added these additional services on so that, so that people are prepared to start farming the next season. And we've also turned people away because they might benefit from another season or two of commercial farming experience. So regardless, once you have finalized your farm plan and you've gotten accepted into the incubator, here are some of the resources that you have access to. Gina, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So we lump all of the site usage and access into one category, and we charge per acre to include your plot of land, electricity, well water, the irrigation system. So we irrigate out of one of our ponds that's on site. There's that's included in the site usage fee. We handle mowing of the site, use of the parking lot, which is open not only to you, but to your customers if they come to the site as well. Trash removal and dumpsters, all of those resources that make it possible for us to, to keep the site going. We also offer technical assistance. It's typically an hour a week, but if you need additional, sometimes incubator farmers come to us with not that much experience, and so they might need to lean on Brad more than what we've allotted. That's also available by the hour. We offer equipment typically by the hour, and we have quite a bit of equipment available on the site. That includes a New Holland tractor with a front end loader, a Coyote tractor with a front end loader, a Kubota cultivating tractor, and we also have a BCS walk behind tractor. And then we have a variety of implements for tillage, planting, cultivation. We have seeders, a variety of hand tools, and we also have what we call our Johnny's Selected Seeds tool library. So that is complimentary to be used by all incubator farmers. Other farmers in our area can also subscribe to it on an annual basis. And the goal in making all of this equipment and these tools available is so that when farmers go off, transition off the incubator, they've had experience in a wide variety of tractors and techniques so that they can make lower risk decisions about what they want to invest in for their more permanent farm locations. We also have on our site 2 coolers, a greenhouse, and that is available for rent by the table by year. So if you use 3 greenhouse tables in the spring, you pay once and you have access to the greenhouse for the rest of the season. We have dry storage in our pole building. And we also have a farm stand on the site that farmers can use to sell their products. And then the final resource that we have available is custom tractor work, which we don't want incubator farmers to rely on. It takes a lot of our time and resources to provide it, but it is available to somebody who maybe is going to be farming at a hand scale and they don't have the proper training to use equipment themselves, but they need to get their plot ready, for example. So that is available as well. Let's see. Okay, and then what we do is 3 times a year, you self-report on your resource usage. You know, how many tables in the greenhouse, for example, or how many hours on the Kubota, and we bill you, and then you send in a check. So it's nice. It keeps the costs low because you're not having to pay for everything up front. It's spread out over the course of the year. And then if we could go to the next slide, here is a list of farms that have been launched at the seed farm since 2011. And I've marked the farms that are still in operation with an asterisk because sometimes, you know, after operating for a season, a beginning farmer might decide that it's actually not for them, or they want to take their farm business in a different direction. And if that does happen, the nice thing is that you haven't lost like all of your life savings, for example. You don't have to worry about selling a farm. You don't have to have an auction to get rid of all of your belongings. You know, it's a pretty low risk, low cost way to get into farming, understanding that you might learn that farming isn't for you, or at least in that form. So Good Work Farm was the first farm that was launched at the seed farm. You might be familiar with it. They operated in the incubator for 3 years and then transitioned off onto another rental site just down the street. And they're farming by draft horse power, which is kind of cool. And they also decided that, you know, they weren't going to stay in farming. They learned that farming was only for them if they could purchase land and be investing in the soil. And so luckily a couple of years ago, they found a plot in Nazareth and purchased that. So that is where they're operating out of now. Lehigh Farm is another farm that was first launched in the seed farm. And after a couple of years, Emma transitioned down to Lundale Farm in Chester County, where she's continued to grow her operation. Let's see, I don't necessarily need to tell you the story of all of these farms, but one thing that is consistent is that everybody's path through the incubator and then post-incubator is highly personal and individual. And, you know, we don't have a particular track that incubator farmers have to follow. So we don't transition you off the incubator. We will assist you in transitioning off when you're ready and how you're ready. But we don't have any requirements for where you need to go next, or, you know, how many years you're allowed to operate before we kick you off. Since the seed farm is still pretty small, we're able to continue to just provide the resources that you need where you are. Let's see, make sure I've covered. Okay, I think that is it for the seed farm's presentation. So I look forward to answering the questions that have popped up during the presentation. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. And thank you, Brad, as well. Just a reminder for folks, we are entering questions in the chat box. So if you do have a question for the Q&A, please do use the chat box to submit them, and we'll get to those after our third presentation here. At this point, I'd like to hand it over to John Darby from the Horn Farm Center outside of York.
Okay, hey everybody. Really glad to be here. Thanks for having me. I've had the pleasure of visiting the seed farm many times over the years, and after seeing Ned's stunning photos of the aerial shots there, I'm really looking forward to checking out Hilltop the next time I'm in Pittsburgh. So I'm going to give you guys a quick overview of sort of what the Horn Farm is, how we came to be, and how our program has sort of morphed over the years as we've kind of redesigned it from time to time. And then I'm going to kind of let you know where we're at right now and where we're going as we head into the future. So the Horn Farm Center is located in York County, which is in South Central Pennsylvania. And I usually say if you draw a line from Harrisburg to Baltimore, we're kind of right in the middle there. Right in the, excuse me, about halfway. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and the Horn Farm was established in about 2004 in response to some planned development of the land. The land was at the time owned by the county and still is. Was donated to the county by the family of David E. Horn in the 80s, and the county leased it out as farmland from that time. And historically, the farm has been farmed longer than the United States has been a country. And so when the county decided at some point that they were considering putting it up for development, possibly extending the York County prison system to that land, and it was also being toyed around with the idea of turning it into another Harley-Davidson plant. And so a group of grassroots citizens got together, didn't want to see that happen. Long story short, after a lot of work done, the county said, okay, great, you guys win, we won't develop it, but we'd like to see you guys do something useful with it. And so that was where the idea of an education center was formed. Jumping ahead, in the last couple of years, our board of directors voted to move the farm towards a more regenerative farmscape with the goal of doing a lot of ecological rehabilitation on the edges and on various parts of the land. The shot that's right up now on the screen is an aerial view of the property itself in the purple there. And the road right below that is Route 30, so we're right along the highway. We have a lot of good visibility, which has been a bonus for us over the years. So it's 186 acres, and that consists of about 70 acres of wooded patches here and there. The farmland that we manage, the farmhouse campus, which is represented by the little yellow marker there. And then we still rent about 80 to 90 acres out to another farm family that have been on the land as long as we have, and actually longer. And it was actually just last year that they converted their 80 to 90 acres to certified organic, or in the transition phase for that. So land is still owned by the county. They leased it to us for $1 a year in support of what we do, and just recently gave us a 99-year lease on it. So we're kind of here for the long haul. And then we also put the farmland into permanent preservation. What we do at the farm, and we could go to the next slide, which is just a quick, pretty picture aerial to give you a sense of the farm there. And what we do there, we have community gardens, which you can kind of see off there in the distance. And that's a great way to have folks come to the farm. We draw from the various towns and cities around us that don't have yards, et cetera. And that's been a nice staple for the community over the past, I think 12 years. 12 or 13 years ago, we started those. We do public classes and workshops, about 60 per year, ranging on topics from gardening, farming, business skills, foraging, primitive skills, homesteading skills, food prep and preservation, ecological design, and farm business skills. We also do private classes for groups and for individuals, both on-site and off-site. We have a woodland steward training program for folks who go through a 6-month program to learn how to manage wooded areas along the farm, learn ecological skills, tree identification, things like that. We have a beekeeper training program, which is a 2-year program that one of our local beekeepers runs. It allows individuals to learn all of the basics in the first year. And then at the end of the first year, they actually receive a hive of bees. They learn how to do a split, take bees home to their home property. So that in year 2, they're not only managing bees at home, which brings up a lot of more interesting questions they may have and troubles the troubleshoot, but they continue to learn in the online class program as well, in the hands-on part of that. We have a regenerative farming training program, which I'm going to talk through a little more in depth in a second. We do public events occasionally, like our spring plant sale and our fall paw fest. And we do a lot of consulting with other landowners on ecological landscape design, whether they're trying to install farms or gardens or deal with water management on their property, or to do foraging, wild plant ID on their property. And then we also try to spend a lot of time doing some research and experimentation on the farm, some of which we do with other partner organizations like universities around this for data collection. And that's sort of a really quick rocket overview of everything that we're doing, which brings us to our incubator program. So this was launched in 2010, and we modeled this after the Intervale Farm up in Vermont, which several of our board members visited and were really struck by and wanted to see something similar here in New York. And we originally conceived it and operated it as a 3 to 5 year program that would offer land rental to participants. And it was application based, so aspiring farmers would apply for this program. And we'd interview them and see who was a good fit. But as part of this program, they would get land rental, infrastructure usage, such as a greenhouse, a pole barn with a covered wash area, a walk-in cooler, corn barn as a farm with a farm stand in it that we open to the public. We have an irrigation pond for water access, and then we do equipment rental for our farmers. We have a couple different tractors with implements. We had a BCS, which we just sold for various reasons. And we would do tractor training with them and make sure that they were ready to use that if needed. We'd also do business mentorship and marketing assistance. And to join that program, we were requiring that they had 2 years experience either working on other farms or being pretty serious avid home gardeners. But we really weren't doing any kind of growing training for them to teach them how to farm. So we were expecting them to come in with those skills. So this was really more of a business mentorship training and land access kind of program. So after 3 to 5 years in the program, it was expected that folks would take their farm business and sort of fledge the nest, so to speak, move off of the horn farm and start their own farm. And during the next 7 or 8 years of that, we had multiple farmers come and go for various time periods. Some left us to work for other farms. A couple purchased their own farms and started farming. Some left farming altogether. We had a few folks that were with us for a year or so and discovered that they actually didn't want to be farmers at all. And we considered that one of our successes, that we were able to give individuals like that a safe space to experiment and sort of try this path where they weren't having to sink a lot of money into land or equipment. And so we could support them through that journey. We eventually came to the conclusion, not only through our own experience and learning, but also working with a national organization called NIFTY out of Tufts University, that we felt like that 3 to 5 year expectation wasn't really reasonable to expect, at least in our region, that a farmer would go through 3 to 5 years and then be able to afford or find land off-site. Land in our area is really scarce and really expensive. And because we had that as an asset with all these acres, that we decided that we didn't necessarily need them to leave. So it was more, we put together a program then so that we would offer long-term leases if it made sense. And so we also decided farmers needed longer-term support. So by allowing farmers to stay on the land longer, we could continue to support them from a marketing and business standpoint, help them to meet their needs and help them to grow as a business. And that's what we've done the past couple of years with a few farmers still on the land, which I'll mention shortly. But during this time, we were receiving a lot of applications from folks who did not have 2 years experience, that were really interested in going down this path, but needed more training. And so that really opened up the understanding that that was a need that was not being met in our area. So we developed our farmer training program as a response to that. And we have a working CSA farm on site that our trainees help to run as part of their training. So this was designed for individuals who may have interest in becoming small business farmers, but we also made it so that it was a good training program for folks who just want to learn the skills for homesteading or just to explore a potential path. Our program runs from March through October, and participants learn experientially through working on the farm. We have them here 12 hours a week on a part-time basis so that they can still maintain their full-time jobs that most of them have in their daily life. And we also do classroom training and field trips to other farms. Primarily what we grow is organic vegetables that feed into the Horn Farm CSA, but we also give them exposure and experience maintaining agroforestry systems that we've been installing, and also doing some work in the wooded areas that border the farm there. We expose them to everything from the greenhouse to the field management, seeding, transplanting, harvesting, post-harvest handling and packing, CSA setup and marketing, end of season close-up, etc. And most of what we do with the trainees is with hand tools. So we're not using a lot of tractor or mower usage in those areas. We're doing primarily no-till hand farming with them. It's a 1 or 2 year program. The second year is geared more toward individuals' particular scopes of interest. One example is that we had Betsy go through our farm, and she, through the farmer training program, and she spent the first year learning a lot of stuff, and then really decided that she wanted to focus on cut flowers as a business. So in the second year for training program, we facilitated her starting an area of the farm as a cut flower farm. And after that second year, she transitioned from that training program into our incubator, actually leasing that area as her farm. So, and she's still with us today, running a cut flower CSA and selling into some markets in Harrisburg. So really over the years, our focus as an organization has shifted from the incubator itself and really more towards our farmer training program, just because at least in our area, that seemed to be more of a need. So we have three former incubator farmers on the property that are leasing land from us, continuing to run their businesses. We have Kilgore Family Farm, who is growing organic vegetables and selling to restaurants and wholesaling. We have Betsy's Flowers, who I mentioned, who is a cut flower business. And then we have River Hills Plants, which is a fellow named Zach, who is growing native trees and shrubs from seed in the field, and then transplanting to pots and bare root for sale that way. And you know, we're still looking, we're still open to future incubator participants in the future. And we've been sort of changing the criteria over the years about who we would bring in and why and how. And we've really decided that, just like sort of the ecological focus of the farm as a whole, it really needs to be relationship based. So if we're going to lease land to someone, we want to try and get to know them over a period of time through a lot of interviews and discussions, and making sure that it's a right fit for them, the right fit for us. Still an application process, and then kind of working towards how we can support them and what they're trying to do. And then, you know, like everybody else, this has been a crazy year for us with pandemic restrictions and trying to operate what we're doing safely. Most of our classes and workshops have been shut down. We've been still running the farmer training program as a, you know, believing like most of you that now more than ever we need to be training people how to do this work. So we're kind of in the redesign process for next year to see what things look like. We're experiencing some staffing changes as well, so it's kind of been a fun year. But I look forward to your questions, and I'll leave it there. So thanks everyone.
Okay, very good. Thanks, John. If the speakers are able, maybe we take ourselves or allow videos to run if you can, so folks can see us as we do the Q&A here. We've got several questions. If you do have any questions yourself, again, please do use the chat box. And to answer one of the questions from early on, the recording of this will be made available on PASA's resources page after a couple days. We'll just have to process the video and then we'll post it there. So to kick things off, I guess for each of the three farms, do your programs help beginning farmers find distribution channels and opportunities to get their products to market? Ned, you're still muted there.
Sorry. We certainly try to. You know, again, we really are in our first full year of operation now, and we're trying to build out these systems that we have. But one thing I failed to mention before is for our Farmer Incubator program, we have what we call our advisory council. It's about 20 folks from all over the Pittsburgh area, farmers and just folks who represent different environmental nonprofits or organizations that we work with, and they help us make the sort of choices that we need to make about what farmers we allow, but they also are then the same people we lean on to help when we can't find somebody access to a market. You know, I would go to that group and say, hey, you know, we have this farmer here, he's new this year, can we please, you know, get him into one of the city markets? And I would lean on those sorts of relationships right now, just because we're still trying to build out our more formal you know, operations.
I'd say at the seed farm, it's pretty much the same. We help on an as needed basis. We like to see the farmers kind of doing the legwork and finding your farmers markets or setting up your CSA, but we're also part of a food bank. So that's an option that we always want to make sure that farmers are aware of as well, that they can actually sell to the food bank.
Yeah, and at Horn Farm, we're doing some of the same things. We've done a good job over the years of having relationships with the local sort of restaurant community and trying to make that work when we can. But one thing we do is, because of our farmer training program and how the trainees are growing for our CSA, we also reserve a portion of our CSA for the incubators that we have on site and buy in from them to help supplement that. That takes some of the work off our shoulders to having to have a full line of crops, but it also guarantees them at least a little bit of a market there, including Betsy's Flowers. Like, we are buying from her so that we can give our shareholders a couple weeks of flower bouquets in the spring and in the fall. So.
Okay, great, thank you. Somebody was asking if copies or examples of your contracts, as well as, you know, the charges and what's offered as a part of the programs are or could be available.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. If you let us know how you want to do that, if you want us to send it to you to disperse or else, or people can contact the Horn Farm directly, is fine too.
Yeah, we can. We'll use the registration list. So for anybody who's able to share them, we can share that via the registration list. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, we should be able to do the same, Dan.
Okay, great.
We can too.
Excellent. Anyone, and I'll point this one to start with Ned, and then the other folks can go. Anyone doing beekeeping or honey production on your farms?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We worked out at a relationship with a guy here named Randall Hall. He runs a business called Bee Boy Honey. He's been around for close to a decade, I believe, in the Pittsburgh area, and if not longer. And he now has 7 hives. He started with 2 last year and moved 5 new ones up there this summer, and most of them are thriving. You know, he lost over half of his hives last year around the city. He had, I believe, over 32 or so last year. So he's focusing a bit more on our site this year, which is nice. But he also does a lot of trainings and workshops for us when we ask, when we do have youth on the farm or volunteer events. So he's really great. I highly recommend checking out Bee Boy Honey if you're in Pittsburgh.
Okay, Lindsay or John?
We had a very small apiary start one year. Brad, you were there when he was operating, right?
Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. He had maybe 2 or 3 hives on the property, and then I believe he had both of them or all of them die off before the summer, and then I think he got out of beekeeping. So we currently don't have any hives on the farm.
With our beekeeper training program, we have a number of hives on the farm. And I think since we started that program 6 years ago, I think we've graduated about 30 or 40 beekeepers. I know some of them are doing that on a more, very small scale commercial level, but many of them are still keeping sort of home scale bees. But we have some bees on the farm as well.
Okay, great. Ned, we had a multi-parter here for you. Looking for interest generated for folks from specifically the urban community and those who are unfamiliar or don't come from farming.
Sure. I'll start with that one. I'm looking
Yeah.
at the questions,
There.
so I'll
Okay.
answer one by one. Yeah, not a problem. So the interest being generated, we opened last April, and I was brought on specifically to start youth programs. I have an extensive background offering youth education in farming and in arboriculture as well. I'm a certified arborist. We were using that as the tool to get kids into the farm because it's still physically locked. We literally and figuratively are gatekeepers, and that's a blessing and a curse because no one wants to hold the keys to this beautiful site and this beautiful place in the middle of the city, but it's part of our lease agreement that we keep it shut. And so the youth farm was the way until COVID hit, that we were reaching out to the community, and we were starting to do intergenerational cooking classes. I was doing nutritional classes with any kids who came to the farm where they'd harvest and get to take some food home with a recipe and then try making it for their families. And that was sort of the main hook that we were trying to get the community to pull into. So this year we've pivoted a bit, and because we're not able to have the youth on the farm this summer, we've actually built out a community farm, and we're donating everything we grow to food pantries in the area. And so we're using that as a way to at least get the word out a bit that we're up here and we're growing food for this community. But that's one of our challenges going forward is making sure that we're generating interest with the community that's surrounding our farm. I'll move on to the next one, the tough soil. We've had to remediate. Actually, Dan Dalton has helped us a ton with our soil work on the farm. Thankfully, we've had his advice, and it's really been super incredibly helpful in getting us to the point where we are now. But the nutrients and things, the cation exchange was actually all pretty good when they've been doing soil testing. For a place that had buildings on it for 70 years, it's compact, yes, and there's a ton of rubble, but the profile is actually not bad. It's more the structure that we're having to deal with. There's a ton of compaction and just so much rubble and wires. And, in that slide, I wasn't kidding, 80,000 pounds from 3/4 of an acre, and that's not everything. When it rains, every time it reveals like that next layer of brick, and it rises to the top. And so we literally just have volunteers coming out to pick rocks. So we use a lot of volunteer and manpower to do the remediation, but we also have our BCS walk behinds with our rotary plows. It's called the Ground Blaster, and it does just that. So we've really been using that, and we're starting to train our farmers on those as well, and they have access, of course. And then lastly, the process we are going through for land ownership. So again, it's owned federally by the Federal Housing Authority. It needs to sell to another government entity first. That is just a weird federal rule. So the Urban Redevelopment Authority of Pittsburgh would be the entity to purchase it. Now they are struggling to come to an agreement about what the price of the land is. And part of that is that we have a 5G cell tower on site. And I guess there are 7 businesses that have access to that cell tower. And so grandfathering in those folks who pay, I think, close to $500,000 each per year to use this very tiny part of our farm. So we're hoping that this land transfer will start to happen in the next year. Once the Federal Housing Authority sells to the URA will then parcel it out. So we're just a 23-acre spot on a 107-acre parcel of the site. And there's 84 acres of hillside that wrap around. And then there's another 150 acres that would be parceled out as a housing development. And we hope will be mixed income and potentially could be related to the farm in some sort of agri-hood style of neighborhood. But yeah, the Allegheny Land Trust is our main purchasing partner for that. They own most of the protected hillsides in Allegheny County where we live in Pittsburgh here. And so they would also be purchasing the land for us, but they'll have to fundraise. So they have to wait until the URA tells us how much it's going to cost. And then ALT can come in and say, all right, donors, here we go. This is a big, chunk of land that we want to keep in farm and in, hillside and forested hillside. So let's raise the money and then they'll lease it to us for $1 for 99 years. I know that was a lot and very convoluted, but it is a bit of a convoluted process. So I hope that made a little bit of sense.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Ed. And just for context, and I don't recall if you said it in this presentation or not, this is the largest urban farm in the country in operation right now, at 23 acres. So it's impressive as a project. Curious to hear from everyone on the panel, systems for direct support and ways that you help farmers as they transition off of your farms or out of your programs, as far as getting access to land, loans, and so on. Maybe Lindsay, do you want to start, and then we'll kind of go around the circle?
Sure. So we don't have, I think I mentioned this in my presentation, we don't really have a formal way of transitioning people off the incubator. We try to meet our incubator farmers where they are, figure out what their needs are. Some people have been very successful in finding their own places to transition. And others have benefited from, being connected to a network of landowners. Like I said, we're pretty closely tied into Lehigh County's Farmland Preservation Department. So, sometimes it happens that preserved farmland owners are looking to host incubator farmers on their sites. We like to refer incubator farmers over to Pennsylvania Farm Link. We found that is a great organization with excellent resources for, considering leasing land, doing short-term and long-term leases, as well as purchasing land. And I don't think that is something that we will take a more active role in the near future. We found that our partners do a pretty good job of handling it. So, they do an excellent job of handling it in the sense that we don't really need to get more involved in the process than we already are in referring them out to those resources.
Okay. John?
Yeah, we also don't have a very formal way of handling that. We do tend to, like I was saying before, it's kind of relationship based. We try to get to know each farmer's needs and what we can do to support them. And since we've really decided to open up our land, we haven't had anyone leave. So they've been finding their land access right there at the Horn Farm. And, really that's been sort of like an interesting process of, working out bugs here and there and what's working, what's not working, what level of sharing or land support do we give them at that point. So yeah, I don't know if that's helpful or not, but it's kind of what we've been doing.
Yeah, thanks. And Ned?
Yeah, very similar to what everyone else is doing. Honestly, it's nothing formal, and it really is on an individual basis and what that farmer needs. But, we haven't done it yet either. We talk, I'm saying this as if I've done it, but we haven't approached that yet. So we're still talking about it. It is something we're thinking strongly about. And honestly, we're going to lean heavily on our partners as well. Allegheny Land Trust, Western Pennsylvania Conservancy. Those two have the largest amount of land, I think, there in Allegheny County that we can help find good farmable land on for these farmers. And of course, we want to create some partnerships with banks and things and help, try and get funding more readily available for our young farmers, especially. So these are things we're thinking about, but yeah, nothing formal yet.
Ned, you set me up really well there. In the chat scroll, there is a link, waterlandlife.org. That's to the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy's Farmland Access Program. If you're here in Western PA and are looking to access farmland as a new or young-ish grower, that link there and that program is one where Western Pennsylvania Conservancy is actually purchasing, preserving, and rehabilitating up to a certain standard farmland in the western part of the state and making it available at, I would say, very good rates to new and beginning growers. Most of those properties, every one of them, we assess housing and water access, soil quality, and other unique features on the parcel. They all are within, I believe, 50 to 60 miles of Pittsburgh. So you have an inbuilt market in that sense, as well as any secondary or closer local markets as well. So it looks like we're scrolling through there. You can see there have been farms purchased in Mercer County, which is north of the city of Pittsburgh, as well as in Westmoreland County as well to date. They're currently actually trying to find farmers for their Ruffsdale property. And I believe links are available there. So if you are somebody who is on the cusp and seeking actively farmland, that's a great opportunity. I'll also put a link here in the chat box to PA Farm Link. Again, a great resource. They've got a monthly newsletter that comes out with new opportunities and a matching portal for those who are either have land on offer or are seeking land themselves. Next question, are any of you on the panel partnering with local food hubs to increase market opportunities?
We are not. We don't really have a local food hub close to us, sadly. I'd love for someone to start one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been an ongoing discussion in the Lehigh Valley too, trying to get one started, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, we just added vegetable farming to our land this year. We had a cut flower farm on the land last year, so we're still in the process of figuring that all out, to be perfectly honest. And we hope to eventually build a market on our farm once we do own the land. It's, one of the weird things about the lease agreement is that we can't sell anything on the farm physically. So we'd have to build something away from the place right now. And there's, on the south side of Pittsburgh, there really isn't a great local food hub yet. But, hopefully someday.
Okay, thanks. For this is asking in terms of the longer programs, but I guess for any of you, do you have anything in the way of housing support for trainees, either connecting folks with housing or actually housing as a part of your programs?
We do not. Again, it's just such a young program, new program. And I think, longer term, there's certainly opportunities if they do put housing into the community as they have proposed prior to this. But, no one can live there now technically. So we don't have access to any other housing nearby or offsite. So unfortunately, no. But if you are interested in our farm, don't hesitate to reach out, and I can, I would do my best to try and facilitate some sort of help for you. Yeah, so don't hesitate if that is what's holding you back.
Yeah, same for the seed farm. We are on public land, so people can't live there. But we've had trainees crash on board members' couches. Even we have, people in our network who have been involved with woofing, and so they're open to that. We can help you find an apartment, but we don't have any housing ourselves.
Yeah, we've been talking about that quite a bit at the Horn Farm the last couple of years, and we have a building and grounds committee that has been looking into potentially trying to find a solution for that in the long term, but not in the short term. We have had participants in our programs. We had a woman actually want to take our training program and move from Maryland to an apartment nearby. So there's a fair amount of apartments locally that are potentially housing options, but none that we provide.
Okay, thanks. One reminder, we've got about 20 minutes left in our allotted time here. If you do have to leave early, there is a link there to the evaluation for this session, so please do fill that out. It should just take a moment. We'll keep rolling through the questions here. Bianca's curious for the seed farm, what people have done as far as housing in the past, and maybe just generally how you would assess the cost of living in the region as far as housing and rent prices. I know you've sort of talked about the first part of that already, but I don't know, Eastern PA, can you comment a little bit on, I don't know, cost of living, I guess?
Yeah, it's not cheap. And for that reason, we've had a lot of people commute, live even in Maryland in some cases, and drive to the farm, not on a daily basis. And we've actually had people get out of farming because they thought they could do the commute on a daily basis, and it just was untenable. But it's, the Lehigh Valley isn't known for being a super affordable place. But we have been able to find people who, might have an extra room, or like I said, a couch, which isn't a good long-term solution, but we can help you find creative solutions if need be.
Okay, thanks. I guess I'd be curious a little bit, what folks feel like are particular points of emphasis or strengths or things that are unique about each of your programs, if you wanted to show off for just a moment, or re-emphasize something that you've already touched on that you'd like folks to sort of take away with them about each of your programs.
I'd be happy to start. It'll take me a minute here to gather my thoughts, but I'll keep going, because honestly, it's been a long day, and it's been a long time since pre-COVID. It seems it's been a few years, but I'd say one is we're brand new, and I think that's an advantage. I think it's a beautiful spot. We're 2 miles from downtown Pittsburgh. I mean, I think our location is possibly the best thing about the site. It's rare that you can find this much acreage right, smack dab in the middle of a city. And so we're very fortunate that, and it used to be a farm. These people used to take, their produce from this site and take them down the inclines down into the south side and sell them at the wholesale places down there. So it's a very unique opportunity. When we're out there, it definitely feels like an oasis. There's a mating hawk pair that red-tailed hawks that swoop over our field every day. Orioles that took up space in a pin oak tree nearby. Like it's amazing. And if you like spending time outside at all, just come take a look. If you're interested in farming, reach out to us. But I'd say the strength is in the land itself. It's really a beautiful spot, and the soil can grow beautiful plants, and we've proven that this year. So we're really excited to continue to grow.
I think we have a wide range of equipment options, from everything from hand scale equipment all the way up to large scale production type tractor equipment. And I think that really is a valuable resource for somebody starting an agricultural business. If you go to buy all that equipment right away, you'd spend a lot of money, and even if you'd want to resell it, you'd never recoup that money. With the varied amount of equipment we have, you can try out hand scale stuff, from the BCS and down to different types of cultivators that we have for the tractors. So when you go to move off our site or go to purchase your own farm, okay, I like this style equipment, this was what suits my operation, this is what suits my needs. I think that's a huge advantage to be able to try all that different equipment and on different scales to decide, which ones would be right for your agricultural business.
Great.
Yeah, and I would add for the seed farm that a lot of our graduates have said that they've come out of our programs with amazing connections. We have a really strong local food economy, and that's probably the case in the areas where all of our incubators are situated. But I think in general, that's one of the biggest benefits of operating in an incubator is the sheer number of people and organizations that you're acquainted with and you're able to connect with as you move forward in your farming career.
I'd say at the Horn Farm, probably one of the most unique things that we're doing is we really are moving more towards perennial agriculture. And so in addition to the annual vegetables, we've got agroforestry systems in. We've been planting a lot of coppice stands for coppicing agroforestry. We have, I think we planted 3,000 or 4,000 trees in the last eight months to a year, and some alley cropping systems in place, and different kind of things like that. Really just like focusing on the relationships between the wild spaces and the cultivated spaces, and what that means from the whole ecosystem standpoint.
Great. Yeah, having been to each of these farms many times through the years, I'll say that they all have their really just they're all so attractive. If I were to choose one, I don't know if I would be able to, if all things were possible. So for anyone who's entertaining, joining one of or more of these programs, I'd say definitely, do yourself the favor and reach out to them and try to arrange a time to get to visit and get to know the people and the settings, because they've all got so much to offer. We do have another question here. As nonprofits, do you have access to grant funding? If so, generally what kinds, and do you do fundraising generally to support your efforts?
I'm happy to go again. I don't mind starting. Sorry for the awkward silence, y'all. Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much entirely grant funded. We get a lot of funding from major foundations here in Pittsburgh. The Hillman Family Foundation is a big funder, PNC Foundation, Grable's, you name it. We're, in Pittsburgh, we're probably getting money from them, just because that's the way the game kind of works a little bit. We have considered some USDA beginning farmer and rancher grants. We haven't gone that route yet. We're actually in the process of, I mentioned the community farm earlier, so we're going for some USDA grants that revolve around growing for food pantries. And so we're looking to expand our community farm next year and get some funding through that program that's been expanded now because of the COVID pandemic. And yeah, I mean, we also solicit individual donations on our website. We do small fundraisers through folks like the Pittsburgh Foundation. We're doing a one-day fundraising event on August 19th this month through them. So it's incredibly varied. That's, half the work. I will say my boss, John Bixler, he's our executive director. He wanted to be here tonight, but couldn't be here because of some family stuff. But he would give you a better idea. So if you do have a little more in-depth questions about our finances in particular, or our grant and fundraising goals and things like that, you can reach out to John at hilltoturbanfarm.org. But yeah, I mean, I hope that answers your question somewhat. We definitely are constantly on the lookout for new funding streams through any of those folks. And we did get some Pennsylvania Department of Ag money this year as well, I will say. And so we're thankful for that, certainly. But yeah, always looking for more.
We also receive grant funding from foundations as well as government grants, state, federal, county. The county provides operating support. We do fundraising events. We have a plant sale every year, and we moved our annual farm to table dinner, which is usually a really big, wonderful event, to a virtual format this year, which help to close the gap a little, but it's, fundraising in some ways is more difficult during this time. But in other ways, there are, more grant opportunities popping up. And then program fees, like what the participants pay to take part in the incubator and the training activities, that makes up about 10% of our budget. So we have a lot of funding to raise from other sources.
Yeah, and we're also addressing grants when possible. A lot of the agroforestry implementation we've done in the last year or two was made possible through a stream relief grant we got, and then also a PennVest grant, which lasts us over a couple of years here. And we do a lot of fundraising, and a lot of our working budget comes from our programs, many of which we didn't run this year. But yeah.
Okay. Let's see, I believe we're at the end of the questions. So I will say we've got 10 minutes. If folks have any final additional questions, please do use the chat box for that. There was a request early on for our participants to include their contact information. So while we wait to see if there are any others, if the speakers want to drop that in there, we'll try to also include that in the follow-up email that has those contract links details. John mentioned earlier the National Incubator Farm Training Initiative, whose acronym is NIFTY. And they do a lot of really great work doing best practices and sharing resources. So if you're a technical service provider or somebody who's looking at operating an incubator farm in the future, or just curious about the model and some of the comps around the country, NIFTY is a great clearinghouse for that. They have an excellent annual conference that's paired up with the Ag Apprenticeship Network. And again, that's another great network for professionals in the field to share out opportunities if you're not already aware. I'm also going to see question is, are there resources available in regards to starting an incubator farm? I would say NIFTY is the place I would go for technical knowledge. The other big challenges we just talked about is funding and land. And those are a little bit more site specific. So I'm sure our speakers would be able to talk to that offline after the fact if you wanted to really get out into the weeds. But NIFTY is where I would say to start. Yeah, I've got the contact information coming in there. I'm also going to drop in here, sure this goes to everyone, the link to the video tour of Soul Patch Gardens from the Pittsburgh Urban Farm Tour. That's the flower farm that's hosted at the Hilltop Urban Farm there that Ned alluded to. I wanted to hold that off so you weren't all watching it while we were speaking here, because it's a very attractive farm. Colette does a great job, and we're really excited to have her as one of our urban growers here. We'll give just a minute here if anyone has any last minute questions. And Gina, I'll ask you to share the evaluation link one more time here in the chat box. Please do, like I said, complete the evaluation. It's very helpful for us. Contact information at NIFTY. If you go to the link or you look them up, Jennifer Hashley is their director, and she's the sort of clearinghouse for all things incubator farms. So Jennifer Hashley via the link that's in the box there. If you can't find it, feel free to send me an email afterward. All right, I don't see anything new coming in, so we'll leave the chat box up here for just a minute for folks to link out and copy anything that you want to take with you. I want to thank our speakers so much. Like I say, it's a pleasure working with all of you, and I'm glad we could put this together. John Darby from the Horn Farm, Lindsay Parks and Brad Pollock from the Seed Farm, and Ned Brockmeyer from the Hilltop Urban Farm. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We hope everyone on the recording and who's been listening in here has a good evening and has had all your questions answered. Yeah, we'll like I said, we're gonna sign off here. We'll leave the chat box up for just a minute, but we hope to see y'all soon.
All right.
Good night.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks.